Alright, hello everybody and welcome to the Warframe video, and today I want to talk about the most recent Devstream, Devstream 139. Now, I usually don't do this, I leave the Devstream videos to other people. I'm not too interested in talking about things that are about to happen. I prefer to talk about things that have happened and I've tried them. But if you watched the Devstream, you know that it was one of the most important Devstreams in recent memory, if not of all time. The sheer amount of stuff they talked about, whether it be changes or fixes or new stuff, most of which will be coming our way this week, I do believe, is just crazy. So let's talk about it. So first up, we have Railjack onboarding changes. So what's going on here is that they realized that getting your own Railjack is extremely expensive, especially if you're a newer player. It wasn't as big of a deal for someone like me who has millions of resources, so I just had to farm the extra new stuff. But if you're new and you just make your way up to Railjack, you're gonna be like, whoa, dude, no! What is this? So they're reducing the cost of building your own Railjack quite significantly. And they also realized that this is going to piss off a lot of people that did spend all those resources, and they're going to be refunding them. So if you're about halfway done with the Rising Tide, they're going to refund all the resources and you're going to get one repair drone. And if you finished Rising Tide and you have your Railjack, they're going to refund the resources and you're going to get 2 repair drones. So yeah, getting into Railjack is going to be much easier now. It's not going to be as much of a grind, which makes a lot of sense because the next operation that should be coming early March is going to have a Railjack component. Up next, we have armor, health, and shield changes. So first of all, armor, health, and shields will no longer scale on an exponential curve, but instead will scale on an S-curve. Now what this means is that it will scale pretty much the same up to level 70-ish, but instead of continuing to scale that way and giving enemies millions of effective health, especially on the Grineer side, it will taper off and scale much slower past that point. And there's also a change that will happen to slash procs, which will no longer bypass enemy shields, so if you proc slash on something like a Corpus Tech, it will tick down their shields before damaging their health. And finally, our Warframes will now have their own type of shields, health, and armor, which we didn't before. I do believe our Warframes had ferrite armor. Then there are 2 changes that involve enemy damage. So first up, we have a change to the infested, where melee infested that telegraph their attacks will have their damage increased because they're very easy to avoid. And second of all, they're reducing the aim bottiness, that's a word that exists, of enemies. So they're not going to be as crazy accurate as they are now. And the way they're doing this is by decoupling enemy accuracy from their level, because up until now, the higher the level of the enemy, the better their accuracy, so high level enemies would basically never miss. Moving on from there, we have something that the community and the developers have been talking about quite a lot for a while, and that is shield gating. So it is finally coming to Warframe, and the way it's gonna work is that if you take a hit and it depletes all your shields, it will not bleed over to your health and you will get short invulnerability when your shields break. This is to reduce one-shots in the game, and your shield will also interact with slash just like the way Corpus shields do, so if you get hit with a slash proc, it will tick down your shields before damaging your health. However, shield gating will also apply to enemies, which will mainly affect the Corpus, and it's actually really well thought out because there's a bit of a twist. So when you hit an enemy, 5% of the damage, if you deplete their shields of course, will bleed over to their health. This is to stop you from having to 2-tap every single Corpus in the game because they have a little bit of shields. This shield gating, however, will be ignored completely by Warframe abilities, toxin damage, which will still damage their health directly, or by hitting their weak spot. So if you, for example, headshot a Corpus Tech, you will still be able to one-shot them no problem. And that, I think, is just really cool. As I've said, it's very well thought out. Up next, we have some pretty significant changes to arcanes. So first of all, we have all arcanes will now go up to rank 5 instead of just rank 3. And from what I understand, this will require 21 arcanes to fully rank it up, and it will give you 1.5 times the power of the rank 3 arcane, so it's basically 50% more effect. And you will also be able to distill arcanes down to lower ranks. However, you will not be able to stack arcanes anymore. But at the same time, you'll be able to get a stronger arcane, and they're also buffing a lot of them. So if, for example, you wanted to be toxin immune, 1 arcane at rank 5 will now do it. If, by the way, you want to see all the changes that will be done to Arcane, you can click the link in the description. It's going to be the first one. I'm not going to go through them because it could be a video on its own. Up next, we have self-damage changes, and self-damage is gone. Yes! My apologies, it's a self-stagger now, and it depends on whether you hit yourself at the edge of the explosion, which is just going to be a short stagger, or you hit yourself head-on, in which case you'll be knocked into the air and you can press a button to recover from it. I'm actually very curious to see how this is going to interact with things like handspring or even primed sure-footed. Also, since they are changing the self-damage to self-stagger, they're gonna be buffing explosive weapons quite a bit. Hell yeah. And they will make the explosion bigger, but there's gonna be a fall off, so the explosions are gonna do far more damage at the center of the explosion and sort of taper off as you go out. Then they're finally gonna make excavators scale with enemy level in excavation missions, and I mean, duh, finally. This was pretty ridiculous because you couldn't do, for example, a Kuva Lich excavation, because even if the Lich didn't spawn, your excavators just could not survive the enemy damage, and it's gonna make excavation a lot better in general. Then they're buffing mission rewards a little bit. I mean, it's not a massive buff, but everything helps because at this point, mission rewards, unless it's like a Warframe part or something, are pretty meh. Then another really cool change is the ability to share mods between your weapons and your Sentinels or MOA's weapons. So you will now be able to equip, for example, the same serration on your primary as well as on your Sentinel or MOA weapon. This means that you will now be able to maximize the efficiency or just straight up damage of your MOA and or Sentinel without having to level a second set of mods. Up next, we have some pretty cool changes to status outside of shotguns, which I will talk about in a little bit. So you'll now be able to go over 100% status chance, and it will actually have an effect because it will give you a chance to proc an additional status effect. So if, for example, you have 150% status chance, you are guaranteed to proc one status effect, and then you have a 50% chance to proc a second one. And this will also come with some additions to certain status effects, because, for example, proccing radiation multiple times doesn't do anything, so they want to add some effects to where, you know, proccing radiation 2 or 3 times will actually do something. Now, at the same time, they will also buff the base status chance mods, you know, the really terrible ones like Rifle Aptitude, Melee Prowess, Sure Shot, and Shotgun Savvy, which have pitiful amounts of status chance, and they're bringing them all up to 90% status chance, which is better than dual stat mods. However, there is a but, and it's a pretty big but, so here it goes. But they're nerfing status on shotguns, so they're removing the interaction where if you hit 100% status chance on shotguns before multi-shot, you will proc status on every pellet you fire. That is no longer going to be the case, and Steve tried really hard to be all like, guys, but listen, this is not a nerf, just please try it, we buffed status on shotguns and we buffed all of these mods, but Steve, we all know that this is not going to be as good as proccing status on every single pellet you fire. Come on. Moving on, we have grenade markers, so grenades thrown by enemies will now be marked, so you will no longer randomly explode and wonder why if you're not playing with sound. And then we have some changes to Kuva Liches and Murmurs, the biggest one here being that if someone else in your squad stabs a Lich, you will once again get the Murmur progress just like before they removed it. And this is actually how it used to work for quite a while, and it made people happy because it meant that doing Kuva Lich missions in a squad made sense, and it was actually quite a bit faster, and people were really unhappy when they took it out of the game. And I think that's enough information for today. My god, that was a lot of stuff. And the best thing about this is that most of this, if not all of this, is coming later this week. Most likely. So yeah, awesome sauce. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, please let me know what you think about these changes in the comment section down below, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.